All right, joining me now is the newest member of the Bellator roster. I got Jordan Oliver. Big week for you, man. Talk to me about how you're feeling a couple days after this announcement that you are officially going down the MMA path and have signed with Bellator.
It's been a long time coming, right? I've looked down this path and I wanted to take this journey in 2016, almost made the change, continued to stay with wrestling and made the Olympic team. And now I feel um, now it's time. It's time to come over and I'm very, very excited about it. I wish I would have came over with an Olympic gold, but with that being said, I have a Bellator world title, gold medal in mind. So, um, I'm just excited to get boots down on the ground and get working, man. And the crafts and learning, all aspects of the MMA and you know, trying to put on a show for not only myself but for the fans.
Yeah, and you mentioned you almost made the change in 2016. I guess so. How long has MMA been on your mind? I think with wrestlers, where it used to be like, oh, kind of guys that when they would be at they had already accomplished what they could in wrestling, they would jump over. But we don't necessarily see that as much anymore. Like we've seen Bo Nickel obviously jump over. A lot of guys are gravitating towards MMA sooner. They have MMA on their brain. So for you, when you were coming up, like when you were younger, did you think MMA would be part of this path, or was it something along the way that just started to kind of creep in and eventually you pulled the trigger on it?
Um, I knew, especially being at Oklahoma State, that this is something that I wanted to do and being, oriented with guys like, Daniel Cormier and watching guys like Johnny Hendricks and the Roll Schultz and seeing their success and especially Daniel, um, was something that was always intrigued me. But, when you see guys that you're close with and you train with and it becomes really realistic. And you're like, oh, I would love to do this. I want to do this, and I can win a world title, be the best in the world. And this is just another step in my competitive career, right? Um, Going from wrestling now to fighting. It's something that um, I would have regret not doing if I passed up the chance to and the opportunity to compete in MMA.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Oklahoma State has a great lineage of MMA fighters, and atop that is Daniel Cormier. I know he's kind of set the maybe he's planted some seeds in a lot of you guys' brains as well. I know like you got Nick Piccinini who's doing it now, and Jacoby
Yep, yep.
Smith, and yourself. So DC, I mean, I guess what's your relationship with him like? Has it been? Are you pretty close to him, or is it kind of more distant?
Oh, very close with DC. I call DC my big brother. I think everybody that's ever been around DC calls him their big brother. But when I got to Oklahoma State, DC was there. So I was a freshman and I redshirted at the time. So we were very, very close. And actually, fun fact, me and DC are 6-0 whenever he has ever stepped in my corner and coached me. And I've competed. So we have a undefeated streak. Uh, but all in all, he was like a big brother to me going to Oklahoma State. It was a change for me, environment wise, right? Coming from the city in Easton, Pennsylvania to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So he was someone that, helped smooth things out, but also um, he was a leader in not just the wrestling world and now the MMA world, but a person in general that, genuinely cared for me when I was there and helped me and continues to help me. Going through this process, that's one of the guys, Daniel, and another one is Henry Cejudo that I've been, bothering them constantly, like, hey, listen, I got to talk to you about this and that, and they've been very great with, helping guide me and you know trying to guide me down the right path and not necessarily make the. I'm not saying they made mistakes, but in their words, not make the same mistakes they made, right? And if we can cut out taking a step back and continue just taking steps forward, that's always a win, right? So I've been very, very heavy speaking with Daniel and Henry through this whole process.
It's great, man. And I guess for our MMA only, the followers of us that only follow MMA and don't necessarily follow wrestling as intensely as others, can you just kind of give me your backstory, like in terms of your wrestling, kind of your credentials, right? You were a 4-time NCAA All-American, 2-time national champion, 2020 Olympic team member. Am I missing anything? Is there anything in there that I'm not getting to?
I mean, those are all later in my career, but I started out wrestling from my older brother. Right, it's kind of monkey see, monkey do. So I was wrestling, and I wasn't able to compete at the time. So when I was able to compete, and also my older brother is bigger than me, so I'm competing against my older brother before I'm able to wrestle, and he's bigger than me, and he got the older brother syndrome on me, right? So when I first get into wrestling, I won. Starting out at youth, I won nationals, Eastern nationals and league championships, and I won PA state titles, 3 of them. So I've kind of, you know, been blessed and had a little bit of luck of being successful throughout my wrestling career from starting from a young age. So I started wrestling when I was 4 years old. So I have 28 years of wrestling in my background, and I was able to add such great accolades. But now we're being in the world of MMA. I want to let those go. Right, I want to build a new base, and not a new base, but I just want to build as a striker, also as a grappler. I'm a perfectionist, so I want to try to fine tune and become the best in every area, right? And times, after wrestling and jumping in, there's a lot of different crafts if I'm thinking about it, right? It took me 28 years to where I'm at for wrestling, right? And there's some guys that probably been striking a little bit longer, 10, 12 years, and grappling and whatever it might be. So for me, it's a challenge, but I'm a very disciplined and committed athlete to, learn the ways and not only, become average, but become the best.
Yeah. And as a perfectionist, how hard was it to kind of move away from wrestling, right? Like something that you had done for that long and that you had been after certain goals. And like, obviously you hit some really almost, the highest of the high levels that you can hit in in that sport. But I guess how difficult was it to finally say, hey, I gotta move on. I gotta close the door on that and open another one.
That was the hardest part, right? Because for so long, all I've known is wrestling. All I've done is wrestled, and I love wrestling, right? It's not like I'm gonna move on completely from wrestling. I'll still watch, and in MMA training, you have to wrestle. So I'm kind of double dipping, but to close the door on that was very, very difficult. But um, it's beautiful for me. It makes me very grateful for what wrestling has done for me, but also I'm very excited about the future of MMA, right? And I've wrestled, like I said, for 28 years, and after 28 years, it's not that I was getting stagnant, but I like to try new things and do new things, and I have always had an interest, like I said, and a deep interest since 2016. And I've been playing around since then, and hey, this whole time from 2016 to making the Olympic team, I've trained on the heavy bag and mitts and grappling and all that kind of stuff, and it's actually helped my wrestling. And I think it was the main reason that I even made the Olympic team and was successful at the senior level.
Yeah. And is there any sort of, I know, like you said, they're separate, right? But is there any sort of, for you as a competitor, like the Olympic gold kind of eluding you, like, is there any sort of vindication you feel like you could achieve in MMA? Like, is Bellator gold something that would mean, as much to you as, or are they kind of unrelated sort of accolades?
No, a world champion is a world champion, right? And obviously, wrestling has a different set of rules to win the gold. Um, but I look at this as something bigger than the Olympic gold. This would mean more to me than the Olympic gold. Of the timing I'm coming in and the work I'm going to have to put in to not only win but win with style and dominate. Right. So it'll be I think it'll fulfill me more to win a Bellator world title as a fighter.
And what do you think Bellator's gaining. Obviously, they're gaining a tremendous wrestler, somebody that's going to be that they're going to spotlight on their cards. Your debut, I'm sure, is going to have a lot of eyes. But I guess, what do you feel like you bring to the MMA world as a person, as a persona, as a competitor that maybe we haven't seen before?
I always like to call myself the people's champ, whether you love me, whether you hate me. Um, I just like to bring style and swag to whatever I do, right? And to make sure that it's not just mediocre. It's perfection. It's something that people can really gravitate towards and appreciate. Um, and I've done that in the wrestling world, and I think I have a higher ceiling, personality wise and just style wise, to bring to the fighting world. I don't want to come into the MMA world and be considered a blanket, right? Or a wrestler that's just going to grapple and take guys down. I want to become the ultimate striker, right? So if I need to use wrestling, sure, it's there. But I'm coming to strike, put guys to sleep, become an ultimate grappler. Things go to the ground. I'm not just wrestling you, going for submissions. And I'm owning every aspect of, the MMA realm, not just one or two or three different areas.
And I think that's obviously really smart. We've seen it with Bo, like what him being able to kind of bring his striking so far so quickly, I think is what has made him, even more popular just through these few fights. But for you, in terms of getting those other skills down, I believe looking at your Instagram, your bio here, Killcliff, is that where we're going to be doing training camp?
Yes, I will be. I'm actually heading down within the day or tomorrow, packing my bags and jumping in the car and driving down to Kill Cliff. That's home base now, and that's where I'll be doing my training. Even correlation to wrestling, you got Greg Jones there, a guy that I grew up watching from Pennsylvania, and goes with West Virginia, and arguably one of the best wrestlers in college, right? Didn't pursue the Olympic and world level, but then you got guys like Darian Caldwell and Richie Lewis, which it's awesome. So getting down there, and then obviously the striking coaches with Henry Hoost, and the list goes on. So the partners, the coaches, the atmosphere is second to none. And if I'm gonna be a world champion, I believe that is gonna be the place that's gonna not only make me a world champion, but the best fighter on the planet.
And so I guess, how long or how many sessions or whatever have you been training MMA? Like, is this like day one coming up, or have you guys got some work in, or have you got work in the striking departments in the past?
Yes, so like I said, I was training a little bit in 2016. Um, I did probably a full year of just training, going in, getting striking, rolling around, grappling, um, and learning. And then I've kind of, like I said, I've just trained and kept it along all of this time. Obviously, I didn't have trainers on hand. Um, but now being here in Jersey City as well, I've been training with, I don't know if you know Richie Van Houten.
Mhm.
He has a gym here. It's Culture Gym, but he just opened it up. The dude is phenomenal. So even I've been here training with Richie for the past couple of weeks, and also I had flown down and trained at Kill Cliff um, for a week, and obviously went down to check it out and to make sure that this is the right atmosphere, coaches, and just place I wanted to be to pursue my goal of Bellator World Champ.
I guess, how difficult do you feel like it is for you to pick, or it's going to be for you to pick up these other aspects of your game? Like, is it something that's already kind of coming quickly to you? Do you think just coming in as having those sort of intangibles that a high level Olympic competitor has, like, do you feel like that this is going to be something that you're not the average guy just walking in off the street picking up some gloves and trying to throw punches? Like, do you think this will be a quick process for you to kind of get your bases down?
So yes and no. Right? As I said, I'm a perfectionist. I am starting to pick these things up and flow very well. Um, and the body kinetics and the way you're generating power, foot movement, hand speed, all of my wrestling is very much like MMA fighting. Um, so it's translating very well, and it's becoming a smooth transition. I think with that being said, I still am a perfectionist and want to make sure my technique is proper and crisp, even though I might be firing all cylinders and looking great in training. I want to be 100% ready with all of my technique. And obviously, you're never going to be 100%, right? That's just the perfectionist mindset. But with all this stuff, I very close to wrestling and the body kinetics and how to use your body. So I'm gonna, fast track and learning all of this stuff and all of these realms. But then again, I have to be patient and smart, right? If I want to be the best fighter in the world, it's not only about having the proper training, it's knowing when the right time is to display that training and skill set.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of bodes the question, right? One of the ways you improve, I think, is to actually get in there and fight. So I'm sure it's not going to be, we're not going to see the best of you the first time you step in there, but we're going to,
Right.
have you thought about at all when you would like to make that debut? Do you have some sort of month or season or time frame in mind for that?
Well, we've been speaking and I mean, I've looked and there's cards, if I get down there, I'll be down there within the next day. There's a card in June, there's a card in July, there's a card in August, right? And those are three that I'm eyeing to be on. Obviously, June will be around the 3-4 month mark, right? And then so on when you move further. For me, it's once I get there and, have 2, maybe 3 good weeks of consistent hard training and all of the coaches really eyes on and hands on, we will be able to see my progression. But I don't want to say a positive date right now because we don't know. If I'm gonna reach and say a date, it's gonna be August.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Not to bury the lead here, I guess one of the big questions to be asked of you as well is like when you declared to dive into MMA, why did you choose Bellator? Was it partially because of this? Like you felt like maybe this would allow for your best career progression? Like we've seen them do this before, right? They've done a really good job with wrestlers of bringing them in and kind of building them as MMA fighters. So was that kind of the key, or was there other things in play there?
For sure. Um, you look at their past of bringing wrestlers in and building them into world champion fighters. And if, you look closely, one guy that's at Kill Cliff with me his name's Michael Chandler. He obviously decided it and took the route of the UFC. But Bellator is nothing short of being the greatest promotion that there is of taking care of their fighters and very intimate work and making sure that fighters are taken care of and whatever they need, but also genuinely caring, throughout this whole process of speaking with them and getting to understand and know them as people. They genuinely care not only about me as a person and the fighter that I'm going to develop into, but they want to see me succeed and be the best. So obviously you can never rush greatness. With that being said, they're handling things very, very well, and it was an easy decision for me to sign with Bellator MMA.
Yeah, and obviously, you need to take your first fight before we get too far ahead of ourselves here. But you talk about greatness. I mean, do you have any sort of like what kind of greatness do you feel like you could achieve in this sport? I mean, is this something? Do you feel like you could kind of take it to new heights, like you did in wrestling? Kind of just really stick out as one of the elite fighters. I guess what's the end goal of this whole thing for you?
I mean, to be the best fighter that there possibly is, right? And when you come to the pinnacle of your sport, whether it's wrestling, whether it's basketball, whether it's golf, people that have been in the sport and have witnessed the sport and see the small intricacies and the little details can really appreciate and witness greatness. And that's where I want to get, where everything is crisp and I'm not considered a wrestler. I'm not considered a striker. I want to be considered the full package MMA mixed martial artist, as well as, if the time comes and, I'm blessed and able to maintain the belt, whatever weight class, 145 I am, and maybe I can become a triple champ, right? I have the possibility of making 35, and I have the possibility of bumping up to 55, right? I have a big enough frame. So if there has never been a triple champ, that's something that I would aim and shoot for.
Yeah, there has not been a triple champ in Bellator, so that would be you would be in a class of your own if you did that. But I appreciate the time, man. Good luck with everything. Exciting to see you finally make the jump, and look forward to following your career from here on out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on. Grateful for the opportunity, and hopefully this ain't the last one.
Won't be.
Hopefully I'll be on here a lot more and talking about some wins.
Hell yeah, man. Looking forward to it. Good luck with everything. Have a safe trip down
Thank you.
to Florida.
I appreciate that. You have a great day.